Hey there viewers, welcome back to Brave of All Trades. Next on the bench is a Remington pole saw. Dropped off, doesn't have the head on it. He said it always fires up if he follows this sequence, and this is past time, it won't fire up anymore. So I'm noticing that the primer bulb feels a little bit funny. The fuel lines feel a little bit rigid, but nothing extremely bad. He's already been pulling on it and pulling on it. Let's just take a peek and see if we can make this thing even fire to find out if it's worth a carburetor rebuild or not. Got a little bit of premix in there. Made a little bit of a mess. I don't want that gasoline getting out of hand. Let's see what we got. A little bit of a pop out of it. Let's get a little bit more gas in my bottle. Got a little bit more in here. Alright, runs, starts up, tells me it just needs a carb rebuild, and let's put some fuel lines on it. Pretty straightforward one. This one's a T25. Pull those off, pull out the throttle cable, and then you want to be really cautious about which fuel line goes where. So on this one, the green fuel line is the return, because it only goes into the tank a little bit. The black fuel line is the pickup. And that fuel line's kind of collapsed. So let's just plan on changing those. And the green fuel line is the one closest to the primer bulb. And the black fuel line obviously is the other one. Okay, Walbro carburetor. Looks like the fuel pump is malformed. And there is trash inside the screen. This is the last filter before you, I don't know if y'all could see that or not, I tried. That's the last filter before the metering valve. And then the metering valve, yep, has some creases in it. So it's not terrible, but it's also not great. So just trying to pull that gasket off just in case I don't have one just like it. The metering valve, the needle is moving up and down. That part should be working like it's supposed to. And yeah, I think it's just with the fuel pump being misformed, misshapen, and then the metering valve having all of that dirt in it. Let me show you what I mean about the fuel pump. So can you see the bubble in the fuel pump? See how it's protruding up? These fuel pumps, these diaphragms should be completely flat. So that just means it's not working like it's supposed to. Let me see what kind of gaskets I can find. Ideally, at a minimum, I need that diaphragm, the fuel pump, and I need this metering diaphragm. I doubt that I'll be able to save this gasket, but it looks like I can save that gasket. So let me take a peek and see what I have, and I'll be back. So it looks like a winner chicken dinner. That gasket I had one of. Let's make sure it matches perfectly. Yep, so I had one of those, diaphragm, fuel pump. And then a metering diaphragm, I had one of those as well. We're going to end up reusing this gasket and that gasket. So save these two out to the side. We want to put this into the ultrasonic cleaner. Dump all that out. See if I can find one of those screens as well. Oh, whenever I blow air through it, it's gonna push that screen out. So, all right, let's put it in the ultrasonic. Okay, well, it's outside cooking, and I'm hoping that the audio is not terrible for you guys. Let's try to get this fuel line swapped out. Let's see. Yeah, it's got a pretty significant bend in it right there. So just match it up. It's a decent fuel filter. I'm thinking about reusing it. Cut the end of the hose on a little bit of an angle so that you can get it started. It's about that distance. Maybe a little longer. Okay. All right, just cut the end of that you cut at an angle, cut it flat. Don't let it fall back in there. Fuel filter and weight back on. There's a piece down inside there. It's the barb for the return. Yep, so that can fit on there with no problem. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Cut it at an angle. This is now our return line. It goes in the front, and on the carburetor it's on the top. Right there. pull it down so we can access it. Got the end flat. Put the barb on the end. Is that side bigger? And then pull it back up. And we're going to try to help it get wedged at the top of that tank. There we go. So the long line which we're going to be cutting is actually the green line, which happened to be our return before. Put the cap back on because there's a little bit of residual fuel in there. Throw those away. Alright, so it's out of the ultrasonic. Pretty dang warm. Other than grabbing a primer bulb for here, which I have some over there, I'll get one. I think we're just about ready to reassemble this thing. Let's see, something like that. Yep, that looks about right. Something like that. Then the fuel pump sits back here. Let me go grab a primer bulb. Looks like it's really close to that one. Make sure it seats in there. Yep, that's a good fit. Get those snugged on down because the gaskets aren't new, only the diaphragms are new. So just giving a little bit of an extra chance. So let's grab the fuel metering lever, the return spring, and drop that in place. And let's drop the needle on the end. I'm going to try to put all of this together at the same time. Okay. Part of that had come off. I had to sweep back in there and get it. I need the shorter of the screws. Okay. And the top of that lever should be just about even with this surface and that surface. So, and then when the metering valve moves, you should see the needle move up and down, and it should move freely. Beyond that is going to be the gasket, and then the new metering diaphragm. If you notice, it was opposite on the other side. It was diaphragm then gasket. This one's gasket then diaphragm. So I buy those diaphragms, the metering diaphragms, in boxes of 10 or 20, something like that. Because a lot of times if you're really careful, you can save most of the gaskets, and the metering diaphragm is usually the very first one to go bad, followed shortly by the fuel pump. And on a lot of kits, they'll give you a couple of different versions of that same fuel pump gasket. So a lot of times you'll have spares. Okay, I just swapped out this crappy whatever this is for some Tygon line that I had. Matched up actually pretty good. Let's get the so the vent was on the very front. That one matches up really good. So that one's back there, and that one's up there. We're going to shorten this one up just a little bit. So this one, this yellow gasket is the, or this yellow seal is the gasket for the carburetor. Let's go ahead and shorten this while we can. I can reach everything. There we go. Gas cap back on. And before we get too far, let's make sure this throttle cable can reach. Okay, yeah, so the throttle cable goes right back up in here. Make sure that's not over tight. And that goes on there like that. Let's throw some fuel in this thing. I use non-ethanol fuel with a pre-mixed container. I usually use the steel ones. I don't know that it really matters. I think Project Farm did some awesome reviews on a lot of that stuff. Let's see, press the primer bulb 10 times. Let's see if it does anything. Well, it's pulling fuel up. Move this lever to the number 1. It says squeeze throttle for steps 4 through 8. So I'm going to squeeze the throttle and pull 5 times on the ripcord. Then I'm going to move the lever to number 2, pull 3 to 5 more times to start the engine, wait 30 to 60 seconds, and then move the lever to number 3. Okay, it's a lot of steps. Or it might start right away. Let's move it to number 2. Supposed to be holding the trigger. hard to adjust the carburetor because there's no load on it. I think it might be just a little bit on the rich side. I'm not positive. But like I said, without a head on it, it's really difficult to tell. Anyway, if you guys got anything out of the video, I really appreciate a thumbs up and a subscribe. It helps the channel tremendously. I look forward to catching you guys on the next one.